Page 2 now, the Bowe Bergdahl fiasco. A defense strategy is apparently emerging. Bergdahl's attorney says that the sergeant had intended to return to his unit. Bergdahl is facing a court-martial for desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. So where is the White House on Bergdahl? Remember, this president told us that Bergdahl served with honor and distinction.
I don't want to be in a position of commenting on an ongoing military justice investigation, that there are obviously complicated issues related to the chain of command because I'm a representative of the commander-in-chief. So I'm not going to speculate on the ongoing investigation. Okay.
But Josh, the investigation has been ongoing since Bergdahl disappeared back in 2009. We saw you talking freely 10 months ago. Now, Haley, Idaho is Bergdahl's hometown. At first, residents there were standing by their man. Not anymore.
When Bowe signed up to be a member of the United States Army, he knew full well that he needed to follow the rules of the U.S. Army. And I'm not sure what happened over there. I don't think we've got the whole story, but I think it's up to the Army to figure out the whole story and figure out what they're going to do, because he's still a registered member of the Army. And so it's their responsibility to figure out what his responsibility is.
Now, Bergdahl declared jihad against the United States. He did so while he ate, slept, partied, cajoled, prayed, and what have you with the enemy. He's a traitor by any reasonable measure. So could Bergdahl ever get a fair trial, military or otherwise? And what is this Article 32 of the United States Uniform Code of Military Justice? Joining me now, attorney, legal analyst, and Daily Ledger contributor Jan Ronis. Jan, what do you know about the Article 32? I've heard it compared to a pretrial on the civilian side. I've also heard it compared to like a grand jury. What do you think?
Right. Well, it isn't quite the grand jury, but it's very similar to, in civilian criminal courts, a preliminary examination. Essentially, there's an investigation conducted kind of to find out whether there's probable cause to move forward to another stage, which would be a court-martial. So it's very similar. There is an opportunity to at least be confronted with your accusers. There's an opportunity for your counsel to ask questions. So it's a pretty good hearing, and it's a hearing to determine whether there's sufficient evidence to go forward. If
you were defending Bergdahl, would you ever really want this to go to trial, or would you try desperately to lay a foundation and you get a plea out of this?
Well, by far, most criminal cases and most cases in military courts resolve. I mean, statistically, 90% of cases in civilian courts resolve as opposed to going to trial. So there's a likelihood, there's strong probability just statistically that it's likely to resolve. Look, if the maximum possible penalty is life in prison and they offer him time served, of course you would accept something of that nature. Who would run the risk of spending the rest of life in prison? So I don't know what they're going to offer him. I don't know what he's willing to accept, but, there's a reasonable probability both sides will come to some kind of an agreement.
Now, I have a theory on the other side. That is the prosecution side, which essentially is the White House side, the government side. I think they will never let this go to trial. I think they're going to do everything they can to reach a plea. And I'm, frankly, kind of surprised they even brought charges. And I would say that the reason they brought charges, because I think they just want this case to go away, but they can't because the evidence is probably so overwhelming and the witnesses are so severe and severely against Bergdahl. That is, the witnesses would be his platoon mates who openly spoke out, 6, 7 months ago saying, hey, this guy is a deserter. We know he's a deserter. When you add it all up in a cumulative form here, I think the evidence is overwhelming that the government couldn't walk away from this case. They had to bring charges, but now they're going to do everything they can to settle. What do you think?
Well, both sides have a lot to lose. Listen, he was of questionable emotional stability when the Army let him in. So shame on them for letting him in. And so they should have known that this was, he was high probability for acting out in some way. The problem is this war drug on and drug on. They needed troops. They lowered their standards. They let him in when another branch of service had let him out. So, and you talk about the evidence. We really don't know what the evidence is yet. Look, right. There was speculation for years that he walked away and it was a deserter, but nobody knows that. And perhaps it'll come out that it was. Perhaps it'll come out that it wasn't. But the Army runs a great risk of being exposed for negligence in allowing these kinds of people into the service if what I have read is accurate. So both sides have a lot to lose by going forward with this.
But the guy, we have to remember that it's not just Bergdahl in a vacuum here, because, all the evidence points, Jan, that he did desert. In fact, his attorney is now saying, yeah, he walked away, but, he had designs to come back. Well, I guess it took him 5 years to come back. He got lost along the way. But we also know that he declared a jihad. There is some evidence of that. But we also have his platoon mates who not only are speaking out that this guy is a deserter, but there also were platoon mates who went looking for him, who put their lives on the line. And we estimate, I'm hearing anywhere from 4 to 6, possibly 8 guys died in the process of trying to find Bergdahl. So there is a lot, accumulating in this case.
Well, he's certainly not popular. And some of what you're hearing, I'm hearing the opposite. The fact is, we just don't know. There is no question but that he was not, he left the base. The question is, did he leave because of the reports I'm seeing? He was trying to report, that the command was inadequate, that there wasn't good supervision of the soldiers, that they were left out there in harm's way. We just don't know yet. But I'm hearing the opposite of what you're hearing, and I'm also hearing what you're hearing.
Okay, but let's say what I'm saying is correct, or at least some of it is correct, right? The White House has known this from day one. They have known this from the get-go, yet they still pursued this guy. They still made the swap, the 5 high-level Taliban prisoners for 1 deserter, which, most Americans don't like the sound of that and probably don't agree with it. I would tell you that this was completely driven by the Obama agenda to empty Gitmo, and also driven by the Obama agenda to get rid of American imperialism in Afghanistan.
Well, I don't think it was the best trade in the world. On the other hand, I don't think it rises to the level of the Native Americans trading Manhattan for a bag of beads. But he was an American citizen. We don't know all the facts. We have to reach out. We're a great country. We are a country that historically takes care of our military. And so we can't leave American citizens just languishing when the reports that they had are that he was being tortured, that he was chained to his bed, that he had tried to escape, and he was brought back. So, until all the facts come out, I think the presumption is in favor of the White House making a very great move to retrieve an American citizen.
I agree with you. I think no soldier left behind for sure. However, it was the methodology, the exchange of 5 terrorists, that I think is the real problem. Jan, out of time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.